I'm sure the first thing I saw was Jason and the Argonauts. So I was at school, at primary school, and that was the film everyone was talking about. That's it. It had the same impact. Well, it had the same impact on me that King Kong had on Ray. No, I can't claim quite that much influence, but it was just a massive thing. But certainly the same effect that Star Wars had when that first came out, or the Matrix. Certain things, certain staggeringly memorable films, sort of epoch defining, at least for that age group. I was what, 9, 10, that sort of thing. We were all at school together. Everyone saw it. Maybe we went to somebody's birthday party to see it together. But everyone was talking about it, because it was staggering, wasn't it? It was just absolutely staggering. It was the sheer joy of seeing something on the screen that you never could have imagined seeing on screen. Yeah, that's joy, which I fear is lost now, because now you go to the cinema confident you can see anything you like. Anything's possible. But back then, in the very early '60s, virtually nothing was possible, and then to see it done so completely and so convincingly, was amazing. When was I aware of Ray as a person, as a creative force? And it must have been then when we saw the Golden Voyage, because I remember that Dave Sproxton and I went to see that together, which tells me that we were it was a kind of almost like a research trip. We didn't often go to the movies together. We loved A Million Years BC. I went to see that, but my picture is going to see that just straightforwardly for just an amazing adventure movie. That was fine. But Golden Voyage, I think, was probably the first time that I would have sat there and been conscious about the way it was made. I should think, not critical, but conscious. Watching it incredulously, because by that time, by '73, we were doing puppet animation with plasticine, but in a extraordinarily primitive fashion. We were doing as much as we could. We were young, 20 years old, with very few resources, no experience, no guidance. So we were doing the most primitive stop motion you can imagine, really, with modelling clay. And then, in staggering contrast, here are these amazingly sophisticated puppets moving. So that was dead impressive. When we were trying to get started, there was no information. There was no, as far as we never found the making of Jason and the Argonauts book, or with pictures that would show you how those things were made, which would have been fascinating, and to see him work or to meet him would have been extraordinarily helpful, because we made it all up from scratch, absolutely, slowly learning one little tiny thing after another, and slowly accumulating knowledge, and presumably he did the same thing as well. But I think because he was a natural engineer, and because he had Wes O'Brien to mentor him, presumably the whole process was somehow quicker, more efficient for him. I don't know. It felt that we were groping our way in the dark for a long time. I can remember. Actually, I can barely remember some black and white magazine, so a special effects magazine, which later in our lives became very significant, and now it's not done on paper, but it's done on video, behind the scenes. It's a huge thing. The one I'm thinking of, I have no idea who it was. There was somebody on the cover building a latex dinosaur. No idea who that was. With a couple of photographs, rather grainy black and white photographs of this dinosaur making the mold and pouring the latex and all those sort of things. And we would sort of study it with a magnifying glass to try and see the detail. How is it done? What's he done here? Trying to read, as I recall, the labels on the cans to see where the latex came from. That kind of thing, because we had so little knowledge. I mean, the sophistication of Ray's model making is absolutely incredible. Because the ones he was making, as far as I can see, back in the '50s, are as good as the ones being made, now in this century. Slightly different technology because things have evolved, and people have maybe through learning, through experience, they got cleverer and cleverer with the facial subtleties. All those subtle details to make characters breathe and this kind of thing. They've probably got subtler, but the fact that Ray's models hold up so well after so long, and the fact that they were so perfectly designed for animation is incredibly impressive. Wow. Like, he invented the visual language for how monsters and mythological creatures moved, which is slightly different from human beings, yes, which is right, because they are, they're giants, or they're monsters, or they're gods, or they're something. They are not, they are superhuman, and so it seems not at all surprising that they should have their own unique way of moving, their own distinctive way of moving. He came down here to Aardman, I think on 3 occasions, to actually talk to the animators, which of course is the ultimate pleasure. To hear him talk when you're in the business is rather amazing, because of course these people in their 20s, they were all used to digital video assist. They were used to seeing their animation every frame as they go along, and checking the previous image, checking the new image, checking, comparing, making sure everything was perfect, going back, going forward. All that very careful way we can do it now, and probably none of them had, or very few of them had ever worked blind, to use that expression, as he would do, where you couldn't see what you'd done. So to an animator who is more or less dependent on the stored digital image, it's almost unbelievable that anyone could do it without. So that was dead impressive. And the fact that he was so magnificently unimpressed by CGI was good. He didn't want to go into that world at all. The fact he was so absolutely, apparently, completely comfortable and confident in the thing that he'd chosen to do, that he'd chosen to make his life's work, was great to hear. Just fun to hear. On a personal note, I did think it was extraordinary that when I met him, I could shake the hand of the man that shook the hand of Willis O'Brien, that more or less started our business. How extraordinary that those two men could span most of the century and most of the development of the art form between them. Absolutely incredible. I mean, all that matters, heaven knows, is that people enjoy it. I don't want people watching them as museum pieces or anything like that. I want them to, be as absorbed as they can be. But at their best, and when they work, when the inanimate things come to life, it's an amazing spectacle, amazing, compelling, and the fact that it's handmade now has perhaps a different sort of value, to the one it had before. When these films first came out, I mean, anyone would know that there's some huge. Anyone past the Lost World in the 1920s who might have believed it was real. Anyone would know that there is some special effects. Some film magic has taken place, but now you're particularly aware in the world of CG of the single human thought and hands that have made the completed movie.